Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin. Thank you very much for joining us. And don't forget, if you want to join the football family, you can hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. And if you want all the news at your fingertips, especially the breaking news, why not download the PLZ Soccer app? I'm delighted to say we have former referee Stuart Dougal with us alongside Tam McManus. And here's what we've got coming up on the show.
Philippe Clement says he has no issues with referee Willie Collum ahead of Rangers' Scottish Cup tie with Ayr.
There's one moment that I would think that the referee is not neutral, then I would directly quit my job.
Brendan Rodgers confirms that Alistair Johnston will miss out on their clash with St Mirren with a suspected fracture. Derek Adams sensationally resigns as Ross County boss after just 79 days in charge. And Neil Warnock claims that the Old Firm are not miles ahead as he targets cup success.
But, I mean, you've seen us play against Celtic and Rangers, both winnable games, really.
Yeah, lots to talk about and lots of characters in the game and lots of opinion as well. And if you want to offer yours, you can do. Obviously, the benefit of having a referee in, he can offer his expertise and maybe give us a little insight into the possibility of blue cards coming into the game. Scottish Cup will dominate our thoughts as well as Scotland's Nations League group. And you'll hear from players and managers right throughout the Scottish Premiership and beyond that, because of course it is Scottish Cup weekend. So with that in mind, let's start. Blue cards, it's dominating lots of people's thoughts, north, south of the border, right across Europe. I think FIFA are maybe just telling everybody to calm down. It's not quite at the accelerated point that everybody thinks it is. But what's your immediate reaction to blue cards, Stuart?
I'm thinking about Valentine's cards first of all. That's coming up this week. But the blue card, for me, no, I think it's a step too far. I'm very much, as you would imagine, in favour for anything that's going to support referees doing their job and improve the vision of the game and protect players as well. But I think we've got enough, I say we, the referees, have got enough in their toolkit with the yellow card for dissent. If we concentrate on dissent for the moment, we see a lot of dissent not getting punished by a yellow card. I believe that when you say to the referees, right, dissent's now a blue card and you're going to have to put somebody off, I can see referees ignoring much more dissent. So I think the authorities should turn around and say, you've got the tool here to do your job, now do it. And the blue card, I don't think will work for dissent.
Apart from the overall penalty of it, 10 minutes in a sin bin, Tam, is something that players, managers, it's another layer of contesting a decision.
The game's complicated enough, Peter. I think that Stuart's right there. The yellow card's fine. I think the blue card, the sin bin, you know, the referees have got enough on their plate at the minute with VAR. They're getting slaughtered weekly, you know, not just in Scotland but in England as well. And I think to add that to something that they've got to deal with on the pitch in 90 plus minutes is a step too far. So I'm not for it, and particularly in Glasgow. I mean, a blue card, anywhere else maybe you get away with it, but not in Glasgow. It'd need to be a different colour for green and blue.
Yeah, I could see the back page headlines week in, week out. Can you?
It's crazy. It's a crazy idea for me. I don't see it happening at all. And hopefully it doesn't come into Scottish football. I wanted VAR in Scottish football. I thought that would have, you know, corrected a lot of decisions, and it doesn't seem to have had the desired effect yet. So I wouldn't introduce a blue card either.
Just to touch, Tam, that there's levels of dissent as well.
Yeah.
So somebody might come back with a quip or a cheeky quip which quantifies or qualifies as dissent.
Yeah.
Where you don't have that yellow card option, because sometimes you'll deal with a player without issuing a card, but if you're having to get a message across, you would use it. But can you imagine 10 minutes to go in an Old Firm game, 0-0, and there's a bit of dissent goes in and you send a player off for 10 minutes with the blue card in an Old Firm game. It's a recipe for disaster as far as I see it at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And think how the referees of the River Plate Boca Juniors match are feeling. Because sometimes we'll live in our own little bubble, but you know, there are so many big derbies across the world that might be thinking the same thing in the last 10 minutes. Although cynical fouls also in that equation. You know, when you look at sometimes
yellow as well,
well, I always remember there's a there's a foul I always remember when the guy was breaking in to the Man United one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer just blatantly,
Forest, I remember it.
Blatantly took him out. I mean, I can see the point in that, but for everybody, that's just a red card.
It's a red card now. Again, it's what's a cynical foul. I think we would all accept that if there's an attacker going up the right-hand side, he's got a couple of colleagues, 2-on-1, and he's onside, and there's somebody comes across and rugby tackles him. That's a cynical foul. It can't be covered by a red card because it's not serious foul play. I would just take the cynical foul into serious foul play.
Yeah.
Rather than create this 10 minutes. So we're going to say it's okay to be cynical in football. I don't mean off the park, I mean on the park. I don't think that's right that we have these cynical fouls go unpunished. But just to give them 10 minutes. So you're saying, it's all right. Do that. Take one for the team would be a saying for the yellow card just now. I do believe if you want to cut out the cynical foul, just bring it in as under the criteria of serious foul play, and you're off.
Yeah.
And that'll stop it.
So, in effect, then, do you see this one hitting the buffers at some point?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I sure hope so. And I don't think, and it's good to hear Tam in particular saying it, I don't think it'll help the referees, and they've got enough on their plate. So, great to have these thoughts and ideas, and we could talk about VAR all day. I still maintain VAR is very good. Of course, there are things that are not perfect, but if we take an example of midweek, the Celtic Hibs game, without VAR, that penalty was not being given. Now, some people can argue it was a penalty, others will argue it's not a penalty. Forget that. It gave the refereeing team an opportunity to right a wrong, and as a result, a penalty was awarded and a team won 3 points as opposed to leaving there with 1 point. That's what VAR was brought in, to try and get the bigger decisions correct. It'll not get it all right. So anybody that thinks that VAR is going to cure all ills needs to think again.
Yeah, I'm going to the gathering of the media ahead of VAR coming in, and I think Crawford Allen said at the time, listen, you know, I put the point to him, that's the very point that you're making, but on the basis of, Tam, that VAR was supposed to give the referee and everyone a greater percentage of decisions are called correctly, even if you have because you have the chance to look back at them.
Yeah, because you're never going to get every decision correct 100%. You know, but a lot of supporters think you should be getting every decision correct, which therein lies a problem. But Stuart's right, that decision, that was a massive decision. You know, that's why it was brought in. You can imagine, you know, if there wasn't VAR and they replayed that, Celtic manager would go off his head, the Celtic players would go off their head, the supporters. For me, it's a clear penalty, it's a foul. You know, he fouls him, and I'm saying that from a Hibs perspective. But no, I think VAR is still in the early stages in Scotland, and I think as we go on, hopefully we get maybe 80, 90, 90%, 95%. You're never going to get 100%, I don't think.
I think that's saying now, Tam, it is about 90 odd percent.
Yeah.
That's improved decision making.
Yeah.
But it's life. We focus in the ones that
You don't
we
get.
don't agree with.
Is it quick enough though, Stuart?
No, of course it's not quick enough, and it's a good point. And the reason that it's not quick enough is that the criteria, in my opinion, needs to be tidied up. We might touch on it later on, but this thing about speeding up the game, but this thing about attacking phases of play. You go back and you can check, did somebody get their shirt pulled in that build up to that goal?
Yeah.
They did. Right, we'll disallow the goal. But yet, VAR can't get involved in even a second yellow card, let alone a first yellow card. So why we allow VAR to get involved in something that's quite minimal earlier in the play, and that's what's taking up the time.
Yeah.
Checking this phase, no, wasn't it offside? Was it offside? No. Was there a foul? No, no, it wasn't a foul. So we'll go here. We found a foul.
Yeah.
We'll just do away with that because that's the referee's decision. Either they've missed it, it's a foul, or it's not a foul. If it's not a foul and it's been played on, that's what's taking up a lot of time. And that's what frustrates the fans.
But you all have to look at the African Nations tournament where, you know, there's a claim for a penalty at one end, the ball races up the other end, and they've got a penalty, and then they have to haul it back to the decision back in the other box.
Before it came in, Peter, you know, the referees were saying, can you imagine this in an Old Firm game? Oh, that'll not happen.
Yeah.
That'll not happen in a big game. Well, it happened last week.
Yeah.
You're right, in the Nations Cup. So we need to understand VAR and the criteria, I think, before we really decide that it's not working for us, but I think it is working.
Would you like, and and I've got so much that I want to talk to you about, but would you like a 60-second time frame on the decisions? Because I have watched, whether it's here or the English game, Stuart, I am watching the broadcast, seeing what the VAR officials are getting, and it's frame by frame, and it's slowed down, back over it again, back at another angle, and I'm thinking, come on, man, move the game on. I was at a game the other week, it was 4 minutes before we got to a decision.
And that's wrong. It can't be right, and it can't be allowed to continue. Would I like, do you put 45 seconds on it, do you put a minute on it? It's really, what do the fans and the players and the management teams want? Because the referees will look at it for 4 minutes, but if you say 30 seconds, look at it 30 seconds, but if we had a chance to look at it a wee bit longer, we might have actually found that foul that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, if we do away with these petty fouls or the small stuff, concentrate on what the key decisions are and the big decisions, I do think that will speed it up. The offside is obviously something that takes time, and that's all about the lines across the pitch. But we might come on to something else about offside.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good because you can give us your thoughts as well on what you would like to see change in the game. What about VAR? Stuart Dougal, former Grade 1 referee, is here with us and perfectly placed to offer us his opinion on some of the improvements that he would like to see, because he's out with that bubble now. It's very difficult when you're in the bubble. And obviously we'll get a chance to talk to Stuart about the pressures that referees are under now, and of course some of the abuse that comes their way in the social media, and of course the influence of that with fans, some fans getting a view which is just radical, but you get chairman, you get chief executives, you get everybody reacting to it and sometimes commenting on it as well. So we'll get the thoughts of Stuart Dougal on that. Tam McManus is with me here. A lot of people again asking, where's Ruffy? But of course, he has it now because he's such a superstar. He has it in his contract that he's allowed 6 holidays in the season.
He is. When I said go, he's never in now. He's living a life of luxury, but deserves it, doesn't he?
I should have actually I've got a photograph that I should, and I might actually transfer it over to our producer to see if she can get it on the programme before we go. And he is wearing the most ridiculous outfit you have ever seen in your life. On this holiday, it is absolutely really.
Gloves.
It's not. By the way, believe me, when I show you the photograph, you'll think it's an away strip for an international side. But I can't wait to show you. Interestingly enough, talking about photographs, what's this photograph all about, Tam? Which is you and your pal. What happened there? I can see him just cuddling you. Had you just scored another belter?
I think that was against Livingston, and unbelievably, Scott Brown used to clean my boots. He was my boot boy, but that was against Livingston, and I hadn't scored in a while. I don't think it was quite a massive drought, but I'd not scored in a wee while, and I think I'd scored. I was getting a bit of stick for the fans, and I gave it the old, I'm not celebrating one. 1-3-1, but, it was great times, and obviously Scott's on a great career with Celtic and a manager, and they'll be looking forward to the game tomorrow. Ibrox, I text him, and he's looking forward to a warm reception for the Rangers fans.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of those ones where he'll be probably thanking his lucky stars he's not a player manager and having to go out and try and change the game.
Cole will be the same.
Yeah, absolutely. and we're coming to him shortly.
Take the pressure off him.
Yeah, I was going to say to you, midweek results just before we look at the Scottish Cup, and of course we're going to look at VAR as well. There's the midweek Premiership results. Motherwell 5, Ross County 0, which prompted Derek Adams to throw the towel in. Rangers 2, Aberdeen 1, St Johnstone 0, Hearts 1, Kilmarnock 1, Livingston 0, Hibs 1, Celtic 2, and St Mirren 2, Dundee 0. Of course, Derek Adams, it was an absolute stick-on that he was going to say enough is enough. I think week in, week out, you could see by some of the comments that he wasn't endearing himself not only to Scottish football again, but to his own supporters.
No, I think as soon as we came out with the comments, I think it was against Dundee. They lost a last-minute goal. He was a dead man walking, Peter. I think that he threw the players under the bus that day, and the players returned the favour. I think 6 games later, because I think they picked up 2 points from 18 since that game. And I don't know if you were at the game against Motherwell, Ross County game, but supposedly Motherwell could have won about 7 or 8-0.
Yeah,
Ross County were a disgrace. So I think after that, the chairman's maybe went and had a word with him, and it's a weird one. Derek's a strange character. We all know that. We know Derek, but he came up from English football, and he seemed to put that on a bit of a pedestal, League Two, which I think got a lot of people's backs up here, and it's not worked out for him. sacking Malky and getting him in has clearly been a mistake. And whether they go with Don Cowie now at the end of the season, I don't know. They try and get someone else in, but they're fortunate that Livingston are not picking up any points. If Livingston could just start winning a couple of games, they would be under more pressure. But Livingston are putting zero pressure on them because they can't win a game either. So, no, interesting to see who he brings in or if he gives it to Don at the end of the season.
Yeah, on that point, Derek, when you come in as a manager, Stuart, there's no point, especially at the point that he came in the season, there's no point in slaughtering your players. You've actually got to try and get them on side.
Absolutely. And it was a strange one, even from a referee. You're sitting there going, I just don't think I would be managing a dressing room that way, or from a business perspective. You want to try and get the best out of the guys, a bit like Neil Warnock has been doing this week before the Rangers game and even after it. He's talking up his players, and that's what you've got to do. I think most people know it. My only consolation was he wasn't slaughtering referees.
Yeah.
He's the only guy that hasn't slaughtered them for a while, so that was okay for me.
He certainly couldn't get a trick out of the Ross County side. This was the record for Derek Adams, and as you mentioned there, it just was far from inspiring. 2 wins, 3 games that he drew, and lost 7 of them.
Started well as well. If you look at the first 4 games, 3 wins and a draw.
Yeah.
So he started really well, and then he slaughtered the players after 1 defeat, and then they picked up 2 points for the next 18. So, I mean, he was going pretty well until that game, that Dundee game, and it's just went downhill since then. And said you can't come out and criticise your players. I think Big Yogi done it. I'm sure Yogi done it with Wraith Rovers. They come out and criticise and they get relegated.
Yeah, there was a man that slaughtered referees.
Yes, absolutely.
You've got to get your players on side. You can't come out and...
Who was the most difficult manager to deal with?
Off the top of my head, it's a hard one to answer, but we've mentioned Yogi there. So Yogi was a passionate big chap, as we know, and it's just about how you manage them. They're all right. Most of the managers are fine. I could go way back. You need to help me out there. Livingston, Terry Duffel coat.
Terry Christie.
Terry Christie.
Yeah.
How many sidekick? I can't remember his name. The two of them were a handful. But in the main, manage the manager's okay, and you go on fine with them. During the game, Alec Totten's another one. I'm going back a wee bit. I think most of the younger managers know that there's an element of discipline that they've got to bring.
Yeah.
Back then, it was old school, and they'll let you know whether we're happy or not with your performance.
Yeah. Of the incidents this week, I mean, apart from anything else, Motherwell thumped Ross County, and we'll get to Stuart Kettlewell shortly. Rangers edged it 2-1. Rangers automatically, made an appeal for Dujon Sterling. He lost that appeal. Dangerous play. I didn't think he was going to get away with it. What did you? I didn't think he was going to win that appeal.
Again, are you saying that the referee was clearly wrong there? No. And it goes back to the VAR thing.
I don't think fans look at that, don't they? Not, but no. You pointed it out. You've got to be clearly wrong in that decision.
An obvious error.
And when it then goes to the appeal, they will look and say, let's see what the law states, the legislation in there. It ticks a few. Was it excessive force? Did it endanger opponent's safety? It did, but not as bad as if it was hitting him up and above the ankle or the shin. So I can understand why people are saying, but it hit his foot. But at that speed, hitting the foot with the studs, I don't think, it does tick enough boxes to be a red card. But if the referee looked at that, as he did again, and he changed his mind and he says, no, I think it's a heavy, reckless challenge, which is a yellow card, that's where the subjectivity comes in refereeing, and that's why VAR is still getting pilloried. The fans are forgetting that it's a criteria that they're operating in. You might think it was a Stonewall penalty the other night at Celtic and Hibs, and somebody else thinks, I don't think that was just a challenge that was all the time. I think the Hibs manager actually said that we see them all the time. So that's where the subjectivity comes in. Somebody's got to make a call on that, but I didn't think that would be overturned, that red card.
Yeah. In the end, though, Rangers got the win, and still battling away and still, getting the goals that they require, even when Miovski got the equaliser.
Yeah, I thought Rangers should have been out of sight. I thought they dominated, particularly first half. I thought they just camped in Aberdeen's half. They could have been 2 or 3-0 up. At 1-0, they're always in the game. Miovski's been terrific this season. He feeds on scraps with Aberdeen, really does. He hardly had a kick, and then great goal, great strength. To bully kind of Goldston off the ball and stick it in the net. and then it was up to Rangers to go and get the winner, and then sending off Aberdeen to a little rally at the end. But I think Rangers deserved overall the 3 points, and that's been a key thing, I think, under Clement, is they're grinding out results. You know, they're not playing particularly well, flowing football, but these are the games that we're dropping points under Michael Beale, and they go and win 2-1, and they're just staying neck and neck with Celtic at the minute.
Yeah. Any positives from Hibs losing to Celtic?
Yeah, I thought Hibs played well, Peter. I think that I thought Celtic were really, really poor. I thought that Hibs had opportunities at one each to win the game. They'll feel hard done by, I think, Stuart, with the 2 penalties. I think the first one is one you could argue. I think it's just a 50-50 ball. It's a clash of heads, really, and he gives the penalty, and then the second one.
He's got a fracture, Alistair.
I know, it's a sore one, Peter. There's no doubt about it. But people can argue. I understand people arguing if that happened in the middle of the park. You know, would it just be a bounce ball? I don't know what Stuart's view is on that.
I can help put a definition around it, whether people will agree or not. The ball was here. Johnson's going to header the ball, and he gets headed from there. So I would look upon it as like a challenge from behind.
Yes.
Right? What chance did the defender have of actually winning that ball? I don't think he had any chance of winning the ball. So he's putting in a challenge, and I do think that it ticked that box again of coming into reckless. If it happens outside the box, I do think it would be a free kick. So it's happened inside the box, and I think the referee is within his right to give a penalty.
Yeah.
Now, if you're refereeing that game and you think, no, I just think that was an accidental clash of heads, you don't give a penalty and you go on with it.
Yeah.
It's down to subjectivity again, and that word will come through for the rest of the show probably.
Say he hadn't given the penalty, do you think the VAR would have said to him, look, you need to go back and have a look at that?
No, because I don't think it was a clear and obvious error. Again,
Right.
the criteria, if we change the criteria, which we could come on to,
Yeah.
and make it a key decision, rather than a clear and obvious error, they might say, do you want to go and have a look at that again, just make sure you're comfortable with it?
Yeah.
I don't think VAR would have got involved in that one.
I'd never be a referee, Tom, could you? Why would you?
We're talking about how difficult it is when you're throwing a blue card in with a yellow and a red and VAR.
You need to be
Who would want to be a referee?
Forgive me for this, Stuart. You need to be a certain mentality, a strange breed, you know, that you can actually sit there and
Like
say,
people screaming abuse at you.
oh, absolutely. I just wouldn't. I don't mind people.
And get paid for it as well.
I was going to say that. I was going to say to you, I'm well used to people screaming abuse at me, but not to the level that you guys have
I'm
witnessed.
not going to disagree with you. We are a breed apart. There's
Yes.
no question about it. But
Did you enjoy it?
A great point, because I was just going to come on to it. But we were also very privileged. You know, as a footballer, amateur level was maybe junior was where I would operate. I would never get to referee. Never mind at the Scottish level I did, but I was lucky enough to do international stuff and quite a career in international football. So blessed.
Yeah.
To get that opportunity, and it was great fun. And yeah, we can argue with players and managers, and we don't like a lot of the stuff that we get and the guys that are getting in social media, but even within what we call refereeing family, but there's a football family there, and the guys, you've not seen Tam for ages, you know, him and I would have fallen out in the park, no question about it. We've mentioned a few others off air who we did, but it's still great to be part of that.
Yeah.
And the referees, that's why so many do it.
I really wish Darren Jackson had turned up today. I did ask him.
Every referee, we obviously speak to Willie Young and Kenny Clark and Big John Robotham. Every single one to a man says Darren Jackson. So that's the fourth referee I've said he was a nightmare.
Yeah, but he was committed. And by the way, a nicer guy you could not meet, because obviously he's my mate off the park, but on the park, you know, that you're right. You've limited it to 4. I can think of the entire refereeing community with him. But before we talk about the Scottish Cup, just on that point, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't realise, certainly some fans who are on that edge of they would abuse anybody. How difficult is it? What was the lowest point for you of abuse? Can you remember one moment where you thought, is this really worth it?
Actually, it was when wasn't the worst that I got, it wasn't the most recent, actually running the line at a Falkirk game. And I don't know if I can say what was said, it's not sweary words, but this lady hoped I would get a very serious illness, and that's all I'm going to say.
Wow.
And the venom that was there. It might sound daft, but you know it's no personal. You know that people are getting rid of their own angst. You don't know what's going on in these people's lives, but they love football. That's their escape. And that's how referees cope with a lot of the abuse that they get in the 90 minutes. It's a 90-minute wonder. Unfortunately, the social media comes into it now, and whether you want to call them keyboard warriors or whatever, people are getting time to go home and still fester away. Whereas referees can cope with the abuse for 90 minutes. It's when it then becomes death threats, and one or two daft letters I got, but in the main I was fine. But the current crop of referees, we mentioned Wally Collum earlier, and it's well documented that Wally was getting a bad time of it, him and his family. I don't think anybody thinks that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have nothing but sympathy for anyone who is on the end of the abuse. That's why I would say it's not a job you can't go if you're thin-skinned. It's one of those ones where you've got to go through all the coaching manuals to say, look, it's 90 minutes, and then after that there has to be a support mechanism for people who are getting it, especially now with social media.
Yeah, and people can go home and tag people, and it's impossible not to read it if you're on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and a supporter tags you. You click on it and you see it. It's impossible just to, like maybe when I was playing, it was message boards. You didn't need to go on a message board, you had to log in and see it, but you could kind of just go to your...
I'm glad you mentioned tags, by the way, because obviously 8 years ago I'd put out a tweet about Hibs who were 2-0 down in a match against Hearts in the Scottish Cup, and I said 2-0 to Hearts, game over for the Hibbies, the wait goes on for the Scottish Cup. Well, honestly, they absolutely steamed in on me.
They came back and won the Scottish Cup that year.
They come back and won it, and it was unbelievable, honestly. And by the way, 90%, 95% of the Hibs fans, fantastic, just absolutely caring you. But there's 5% who were just mental. Aye. And it was nice of you to tag me in midweek just to remind everybody of my 8-year
anniversary.
Yeah, anniversary. But again, all in good fun, because I'll leave the tweet up there because, you know, that's the nature of it. I've never commented on a game in the scoreline since that one.
You need to watch.
2-0, I'm thinking, Hearts are done and dusted. It's a Tynecastle.
Hibs against Rangers, was it 5 each game? I think Hibs went 3-0 up that day. And I went, this is a doing, this is... and they come back 5 each.
I did, so you're obviously the Hibs. I did the 4 each game, Hearts and Hibs.
He hates that game.
I know, I can imagine. So does Bobby Williamson. He phoned me the way home. I said, where did you get the 4 minutes extra time for? I said, there was 4 minutes extra time. I said, can I give you a wee clue, Bobby? He says, what? I said, you were allowed to score in the 4 minutes as well, wasn't it just Hearts? I don't think we've spoken since.
Yeah, well, that's because he'd have to reverse the charges from Uganda.
that was when he nearly killed the boy Yannick Zambernardi, your centre half, who sold the 2 goals. He threw Beckham got a cut in his eye from Alec Ferguson. Well, if this boot hit your defender, I think it might have killed him.
Yeah.
So Bobby wasn't in the best of mood after that game because he'd never won a derby, and we should have won.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget, if you've got any changes or any questions you'd like to ask Stuart, by all means, you can do that in the feed as well. It's always good to get a little insight into former referee Stuart Dougal's take on things now and how it's moved forward. Scottish Cup this weekend. A few referees will be at the forefront of some supporters' minds. Everybody's got dreams of silverware. Here's the fixtures. You might be going to a match. If you're close by, why not go and support some of these teams and get to the games if there's tickets still available? Greenock Morton against Motherwell, Inverness Cally Thistle against Hibs, Partick Thistle Livingston, Kilmarnock against Cove, Aberdeen Bonnyrigg, Rangers against Ayr, St Mirren against Celtic, and Airdrieonians against Hearts. Where is the cup shock? Give us your thoughts on where you think it is. Just out of curiosity, briefly, is there one there that you think there's?
I think St Mirren against Celtic.
Yeah.
I thought Celtic were dreadful during the week there, and I think St Mirren away, if it's like this, if it's blowing a gale and wind and that part's poor, I think Celtic could come a crop on that game.
Yeah. What was the biggest cup shock you were involved in, Stuart?
Again, right in the spot. I can't think of any major ones where like a second or third division team ousted a Premier team.
Yeah.
No, I can't think.
It's so difficult, isn't it? It's like a one-off, isn't it? It's like, you know, it's a Hamilton against Rangers all those years ago.
We up at Montrose Hibs early in the Scottish, maybe late 80s, because that was, you know, people were talking there, this could be and you that one of these inspirational speakers, Tom Lucas, I think he's.
Oh yeah, Tom.
Room, so
Yeah.
Hibs were taking it really, really seriously, but I think it was 4-0 in the end in that game. But no, I don't recall any major
ones. Well, certainly Dougie Imrie has got that feeling as if there could be a chance to take the scalp of Motherwell, who are playing well at the moment. So we first of all in that game sent Kerry out to get the feeling in the Motherwell camp.
Motherwell head to Capello tonight to face Dougie Imrie's Greenock Morton side in the Scottish Cup. And with a 5-0 thrashing at the expense of Ross County here on Tuesday night, Stuart Kettlewell says why can't his side aim for the stars?
These opportunities are why you love the game, that opportunity to try and get to the National Stadium. We don't get there after the game tomorrow night. You potentially don't get there at all if you don't act accordingly and do your job properly. But again, you've got to have goals, you've got to have dreams, and that's something that will absolutely come across for me, the players, that these chances, how many do you get in a 15-year career in the Scottish Cup? Well, the answer's 15, isn't it? It's pretty simple.
Tuesday night was the 12th and final game in charge for Derek Adams of Ross County, and Stuart Kettlewell believes that being in charge of a football club isn't as easy as some might think.
It's such a difficult job, it really is such a difficult job, and everybody jump the bandwagon now and say, oh, that's that managerial fraternity. It's just, I always say, until you've walked in the shoes you'll never know, and that's not an arrogance, it's really simple. Everybody's got an opinion on it, everybody's got something to say on it. I don't thrive off anybody losing their job, I genuinely don't, and that's no different in this situation. I was in the receiving end of a bad defeat in Dingwall as a manager. The players were on the receiving end of a bad defeat, and it was a bit of motivation for us the other night. I'm not going to lie in that, because for me that was the lowest point for me at Motherwell.
Will the Steelmen be the first side to mark their place in the final 8 of the competition, or will we have a cup upset on our hands? It all takes place in Greenock tonight. Kick-off is at 7:30.
What's your take on that, Sam?
I think this could be a wee upset as well. I think Morton, are 12 or 13 games unbeaten. I think they've got a very experienced team right through the spine of their team. They've got 2 good strikers in form, Robin Muirhead and George Oakley, and I think they'll cause Motherwell problems. I think it might go to extra time. And is it extra time and penalties, or is it a replay, Peter?
No, it's extra time and penalties.
I think it might go all the way this game. I can't call a winner. I think it'll be really tight.
Yeah, and it's not as if in those unbeaten matches, they've had 3 draws. The rest are all wins. Dougie's doing a great job.
Aye, some boy Dougie. Again, another one.
I was going to say to you.
But I think if the pitch will be a big factor there. Capello's quite a blowy, holds the rain, and the weather up here, as you know, is no the best. So aye, it'll lead to a very entertaining game tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. When I go to Capello, because it hasn't really changed much since I was a kid, as soon as I walk in, the only thing I think of is Andy Ritchie. Because the park has, honestly, I think there's a stand that's had improvements. But other than that, it just reminds me as a kid watching Andy Ritchie just in his magic, So
Arthur Montford?
Yes, Arthur Montford, of course.
My last Scottish Football League game at Morton, and I got a lovely wee decanter and whisky glass from Morton, and it was Arthur that presented it. So again, nice memories.
Yeah, absolutely. And Arthur was one of those guys. If the auto cue, for the benefit of yourself, you might not know about it, Tom. If the auto cue went down on any show, Arthur could literally talk forever and a day about any topic, and equally so Archie Macpherson, 2 real legends of the game and broadcast anyway. Rangers against Ayr United. Let's find out what's happening in that Ayr United camp, because Tam's old mate Scott Brown is the manager, and Alison McConnell was down there to get a wee chat with him.
Rangers manager Philip Clement joked that his side were coming up against a manager who didn't have too much love for Rangers when his side host Ayr United in the Scottish Cup tomorrow afternoon. However, Scott Brown is keen to distance himself from his colourful and long-held association with Celtic as he heads to Ibrox for the first time in a managerial context.
Not just because it's Rangers and you're not going to get a lot from me in that, but it's another game. It's a huge game for the club. It's going to bring in a lot of money to this football club, which is fantastic as well. But at the same time, we want to go there and we want to be in the game.
And Brown has urged his side to be brave as they head to Rangers, hoping to cause what would be an almighty upset in the Cup.
Try and squeeze the game, they try and put you under pressure, they try to dictate the play, and we've got to deal with that, and we've got to go there, and there'll be pressure on us 100%. But at the same time, we need to try and play.
Yeah, 3 wins out of the last 4. Obviously lost to Dundee United, but if ever a Rangers fan is going to that game hoping that they absolutely leather Ayr United, it's that game, isn't it?
Yeah, as I think obviously Scott's had a long association with Celtic. I think the Rangers fans will be looking forward to him walking out in that pitch, and they'll want Rangers to, as you said, they want them to hammer United just to see him squirming in the touchline. So, as I said, I know Brownie's a confident character, but I don't think many people give United much of a chance. I think Rangers are just churning out wins and now they're playing well. United, I've got a decent team on paper, but I think Scott and his team might be in for a long afternoon, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Binney was out there at the Rangers Training Centre to hear from Philippe Clement.
I'm at the Rangers Training Centre ahead of tomorrow's Scottish Gas Men's Scottish Cup 5th round tie between Rangers and Ayr United. Tomorrow we will see 2 familiar faces return to Ibrox for the first time in a while. The first being Scott Brown, of course the new Ayr United manager and a former Celtic legend. Rangers boss Philippe Clement is looking forward to coming up against him.
I read that he loves Rangers, so I love all the people that love Rangers. So that can be really good between us also on the sidelines.
Rangers will also welcome back referee Willie Collum after the club had written to the SFA requesting that he no longer referees Rangers matches after failing to spot a handball in the most recent Old Firm derby. But Rangers manager Philippe Clement insinuated that he was not part of those discussions and that now he is happy to see Collum return.
I'm happy, to be honest, because when there's one moment that I would think that the referee is not neutral, then I would directly quit my job. So I'm happy that we can leave the past behind us then.
Well, I thought that was a really good statement by Philippe Clement, because sometimes, and I include many clubs in this, sometimes when you get an element of a support who enter into stupid tribalism, I think it's not good for the referee, and I think would it have been difficult for Willie Collum, or is he able to block out the noise?
Block out the noise. It's another game for Willie. Willie calls it as he sees it. All the referees call it as they see it at the time. Don't always call it right or get it correct, but you can't let it affect you. Willie's the most experienced referee in Scotland, in my opinion, still the main man. There's a few good other referees coming in behind Willie. That might be a straightforward afternoon for Willie tomorrow, regardless of what happens. You know, it might help him that there's a wee sideshow with Scott Brown going on there. Scott's not the first ex-Celtic player to take a team there as well, so I just think it adds to what Scottish football is. So I don't think there's any big deal for Willie.
Is it unhelpful when you get a club that suddenly come out with a statement like that, prompted, I think, by an element of the support who clearly are trying to goad certain members of a board to act in a certain way?
It doesn't matter whether it's Premier League clubs or lower league clubs. It just shouldn't be happening. We've had charters over the years about behaviours and what's expected of coaches and players and chairmen. It's unhelpful towards the referees. But the referees, whilst we don't expect it every week, we know that something's going to happen throughout a season, and we just go on with it.
Yeah.
We'll get and do our job and let the authorities deal with what's coming that way.
Yep. St Mirren against Celtic. Tam, you've tipped it as the one that you think the big shock could arise. Here's what Celtic have got as a problem. They've got a suspected fracture for Alistair Johnston. He's going to be out, so does that mean that he's going to switch it around again? We're just waiting on the results of a scan. He won't be available for the weekend. We think he has a slight fracture on the side of the head. We don't know how long he'll be out. We're just waiting to see. So that's a blow. Anthony Ralston, as ever, will come in. Bernabei, I presume, obviously gets his run out as well, and Greg Taylor at least has come back to training.
Yeah, I think Anthony Ralston's a capable deputy at right back. I think he knows Scottish football. I'll not face him coming into that type of game, but I think when you look at the Celtic back four with those two, Bernabei left back, Ralston, possibly Scales, Welsh, you know, if I'm a St Mirren striker, I'm looking at that back four and I'm thinking, I quite fancy this today against this back four, and I think the whole St Mirren team will be looking, maybe watched that game against Hibs and thought, we've got a chance here. And Stephen Robinson's got his team playing well. I think they're difficult to beat at home, and I think this could be the shock, Peter. I just don't think something's no clicking for me at Celtic. Something's not right at Celtic. They got out of jail the other night with the penalty, and I think if they put in that same level of performance, I think St Mirren will beat them.
Yeah, and with that, if that were to be the case, again, it just intensifies what is already a situation of a growing unrest in the background, Tam, which, as we know, as we're commenting week in, week out, you have a situation where Celtic are top of the league, albeit on goal difference. Rangers are now, up there at the top, challenging them, and there seems to be a totally different vibe coming from both camps.
Yeah, I think Celtic is fractured at the minute. I think from top to bottom. You heard it at full time the other night. Sack the board chance. I've only heard that in a number of years at Celtic, and they're top of the league, which is strange. So I think it's teetering at the minute. I think they got the last minute penalty. I think the other day just kept the lid on it for time being. But I just think Celtic are one more poor result away, whether that's in the cup or the league, from a full out mutiny for the supporters against the board and possibly the manager as well, who has probably escaped a bit of scrutiny, Brendan Rodgers, but I think now the eyes are getting turned to him as well, in terms of how the team's playing.
Yep, okay, that's St Mirren against Celtic. Adrian.
Peter, sorry to cut in there, and that's what brings a lot of pressure to referees, believe it or not.
Yes,
that tension.
Yeah.
It's that tension, so it'll be interesting, from my perspective, it'll be interesting to see who the referee is in the game and how they handle that, because, as Tam's saying, if it goes against Celtic early doors and the fans start to turn, that's a skill in itself from the refereeing. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, and it goes back to what your point was, though, because the referee had to make 2 big calls at Easter Road, and again, that intensifies the scrutiny on him.
Absolutely.
At one point, I read some social media, and they were already questioning where his allegiances lay, and I thought, the world's gone mad.
Yeah, personally, I thought it was 2 penalties, Peter. I know the Hibs supporters will argue possibly the first one.
I think it was Andrew Dallas. It was VAR. So it was actually Andrew that brought Nick Walsh across.
Yeah.
To have a look at
for the second one, for the second penalty. The Martin Boyle one they're talking, I think Martin goes down too easy, and I think he needs to put a lid on that as well. I think Martin's a talented player. When he's in the box, he needs to try and stay on his feet more, because there was a slight contact for me, but I think he over-embellished it, and Stuart will tell you, if you over-embellish it and you make more of it, then you're probably not going to get the decision. So
I'm having a wee smile, Tam. I tend to remember you as a player in the box, but anyway, I might want to gloss over that.
He says that. I spoke to Willie Young about 6 months ago, and I hadn't seen him since I was playing, and he says to me, Tam, I need to apologise to you. I says, why? He says, a game against Dundee, Easter Road, I booked you for diving. He says, I went home and had a look at it, and I made a mistake, so I'm sorry. I said, I actually phoned Bobby Wilmson that night and apologised. Did Bobby never say to you? I went, no.
So there's a classic there, because if we had VAR back then,
Yeah.
you
absolutely
would have got the penalty and there wouldn't be a yellow card there.
Yep.
And that's the benefit of having VAR. So we didn't have it back then. And many a time we've had to do that.
Yeah.
Privately apologise.
To be fair, Stuart, what we usually do is if anybody has come on who's a former player who's played for clubs, you tend to look, and for example, if it was a Scott Brown, you go former Celtic player. But because Tam's been released by so many clubs, we just put Tam McManus embellisher. So it saves a bit of time. Yeah, it was nice of him to say on that one occasion. Adrionians against Hearts. Well, I have to say, I'm not for any, I don't want to completely and utterly diss Rhys McCabe and what they're doing at Adrionians, but my God, Hearts, it's a changed outlook now from the Jambos, isn't it?
Yeah, they've just got a player in the best form of his life at the minute. I wouldn't go as far as carrying the team, but he's the main man. He's getting their goals. Scored another terrific goal during the week there for the winning goal. You get 2 up at Dundee, when they were losing the game. So Lawrence Shankland's in fantastic form at the minute, and he might just be the difference because Airdrie are playing well at the minute, Peter. I think they're 7 or 8 games unbeaten. I watched them against Raith Rovers, and I thought they were really, really good. They've got a young manager, a young team that play good football. There'll be a great atmosphere at that game at Airdrie as well. And again, I think that'll be a tight game. I don't see Hearts going there and winning 3 or 4-0. I think Airdrie will give them a game. But I think Shankland's quality and the form he's in at the minute, if anything drops to him, you just expect him to score, and I think that'll be the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, they've got a couple of quality goalkeepers to call on at the other end. Kerry Pollock was out there at the Oriam to hear from the manager, and of course, a man who's extended his stay at Tynecastle.
Scottish Cup weekend for the Jambos, and they're off to face Rhys McCabe's Airdrie side. Hearts are just 2 games away from reaching the National Stadium, and Stephen Naismith says it's much more than a target for this football club.
I wouldn't say it's an out-and-out target. I think it's a demand. It's a demand for the club. It's a demand for the fans. And in all honesty, since I've been at the club, I think there was 3 or 4 years where we made 4 semi-finals, 2 cup finals. The missing piece is winning it, and that's these games. People might not remember, but they play a big part. I've managed to win trophies and some cups, and I probably couldn't remember the last 16 or the quarterfinals of some of them, but they're massively important on that journey to getting silverware, and that's why we'll be fully focused on this one Sunday.
Hearts goalkeeper Craig Gordon was offered a year extension on his contract, and the 41-year-old says the word retirement is nowhere near his thoughts.
No, it's not. One day it will, but no, certainly it's not at this moment. It's not something that I'm thinking about. That will happen one day whenever that time may come, but no, at the moment it's full focus on preparing to be ready to take my next opportunity. Doing an extra bit of shooting practice with some of the strikers, so I feel as if I'm in a really good place physically. I don't feel like I need to change a great deal. I'm not getting any younger. That might come at some point where I need to change and do less, but no, I think as long as I recover well between sessions, then I'm good to go.
It all takes place at the Excelsior Stadium this Sunday. Kick-off is at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, Steve McLean's the referee for this one. And the other aspect of this game, when you talk about goalkeepers and how they want to go on, I think Craig can go on for that couple of years, because remember, he views that couple of years out with injury as time lost.
And he's looked after himself, and he's in great shape, and he's a sensible lad. And obviously playing in goals, it's a bit easier than it would be if he was an outfield player, so I wish him all the best. He's been a great servant to Scottish football.
Yeah, absolutely. St Mirren against Celtic. David Dickinson's the referee for that one, Tam. I'm just going through them all for you because I know you clearly want to know. Willie Collum for Rangers against Ayr United, as we discussed. Grant Irvin for Kilmarnock against Cove. Colin Stephen is Inverness Hibs. Matthew McDermott for Aberdeen against Bonnyrigg Rose. Nick Walsh for Partick Thistle Livingston. John Beaton for Greenock Morton against Motherwell. Colin White for Brora Rangers against Cove. And also, I think that's me. I think I've covered most of them there. Who's the best referee for you in the country? Is it tough to call?
At the moment?
Yeah.
It's tough to call between Willie and Nick Walsh. I've watched young Nick develop really well. And I think he's got all the attributes. Very calm, very fit lad. He seems to have the respect, and that's a key thing as a referee. The players trust you, and even though people challenge Willie, call him some of his decisions, etc., the players, I believe, trust Willie, and they do that with Nick at the moment. And you mentioned David Dickinson. He's a younger lad coming through that. That'll be a big test for him.
Yeah.
At the weekend, but I think Willie's still there with his experience, and it's a shame actually because his persona on the pitch is very strict and school teacherish, because he was a school teacher, but funny guy. See, off the pitch, great humour, cut you in half with some of his one-liners. So again, he'll go on well with the players, and a few other lads are doing fine as well.
I think an element of that's been lost, Peter, from when I was playing with Stuart, Willie Young, Kenny Clark. You could have a bit of, I wouldn't say banter, but you could have a bit of to and fro on the pitch. And I don't see a lot of that now. I'm not on the pitch now, but don't see a lot of that between a referee and a player now. That patter or just that respect.
There's still a wee bit of it. There's still a bit of it, but it's like people talking about the managers can't blast players now. They can. It's just that, you've got to be ultra careful because things get reported. Sometimes you get ball boys recording it outside the door. You never know where it's going. Partick Thistle against Livingston, that's where I'll be tomorrow to have a wee look at this one. Our reporter Patrick Mullen previews it.
I'm here at the Tony Macaroni Arena this morning speaking to David Martindale as his side are preparing to take on Partick Thistle. It's the 5th round of the Scottish Cup and it's a break from that league competition that Livingston have struggled in so far this season. But David Martindale does not believe that this fixture on the weekend will be any less pressure than they face week in, week out.
I think there's probably just as much pressure, if not more. Because that pressure, if you were to lose to a team perceived that are factually in a lower league, I think that intensity steps up, if I'm honest. So there's no any less pressure coming into the cup football than what there is in terms of the league football and the league position.
Speaking after Wednesday's defeat against Kilmarnock, David Martindale spoke about how gutted he was that Derek Adams would be leaving his post as Ross County boss. Well, this morning he provided some clarification on those comments.
I made comments after the Kilmarnock game that probably in hindsight were a wee bit disrespectful to Derek, but I want to put that into context. I think it's common knowledge Derek was unhappy being at Ross County. I think his previous press conferences say that, tell you that. It's common knowledge Scottish football's a goldfish bowl, that the players were unhappy. So you had an unhappy manager and unhappy players. Of course, that environment for me, for Livingston, it's better for Livingston for that unhappy environment to remain.
It's Partick Thistle versus Livingston. It kicks off tomorrow at 3 p.m.
1 win in 18. You wouldn't want to be David Martindale looking at them if they're getting the wrong end of a beating against Partick Thistle.
Yeah, they're on a dreadful run, Peter. On the flip side, you might think it's not a league game. You know, you can get maybe play a wee bit more freedom. You know, you're going to get 3 points at stake. Livingston, with all due respect, are not going to win the Scottish Cup. They can go there and play with a little bit more freedom. Partick Thistle, good form, but in the Championship. Again, I don't think it'd be that big a shock if Partick Thistle beat Livingston. But Livingston beat Raith Rovers in the last round, which a lot of people are looking at as a shock. So I think this will be a tight game. But I think Partick Thistle might just nick it.
Yeah,
home advantage.
Aberdeen against Bonnyrigg Rose. All the focus has been on Neil Warnock. We've all had a say on it. Some think it's good, some think it's bad for the game. He's certainly a character, and right now it's box office listening to him. He's only done 2 press conferences.
Yeah, well, he'll soon find the difference in Scottish football. You know, on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, whatever it was, he's at Ibrox, and now he's kind of facing a lower league team. Who will bring their own problems for Aberdeen, I think. He's, as you say, box office from a kind of media point of view. He's never been overly complimentary for referees down south.
Yeah.
I just hope that he enjoys a more relaxed atmosphere in Scotland and keeps off the referees' back.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Neil Warnock himself has looked at Aberdeen in the short period he's been in. He has actually mentioned that there's not too many leaders in that dressing room, which has maybe been Aberdeen's big problem. But he reckons on the performances against the Old Firm, there's something to work with.
I mean, I'd like to win it, but it's all right talking about it, really. But, I mean, you've seen us play against Celtic and Rangers, both winnable games, really. I think a few years ago, I would say they were miles ahead of us. Are you with me? I don't see that now, really. They're better than us, but, I think with the right attitude and tactical way, you can have a go at them, really, I think.
Okay, roll on. Looking forward to it. Can't see them slipping up. If they do, they'll be held to pay, to be honest with you. And if you thought the Sheffield United documentary was hard-hitting, if they lose to Bonnyrigg Rose, he'll be effing and being his way through the post-match press conference.
He will, but I don't see Aberdeen having any problems. I think at home, his first home game, I think there'll be a good support turn up for the Scottish Cup. And I think they'll win that game comfortably, Peter.
Yeah. Of all the fixtures, then you're going for St Mirren.
I think St Mirren can cause an upset against Celtic.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of things, and I want to get Stuart's thoughts on some of the things to do with VAR and obviously little changes that you would make. Just a quick, brief thought, Tam, on 6 Premier League sides have written a letter of concern to the SPFL executive regarding independent governance review. Clearly, 6 of the clubs are not happy with the overall governance. And they've taken aim again at Murdoch McLennan in conjunction with a draft report being made available to the SPFL board. SPFL chairman Murdoch McLennan hastily released a statement that did not reflect the full findings of the report. Additionally, the statement was issued without the approval or knowledge of members of the SPFL board or member clubs. And the club also pointed that only one club had input into the report. Of the 42 member clubs, only one had the opportunity to input the report.
Who's that club? Does it tell you?
No, that's this week's competition. I don't think
I think we can guess.
I don't think it'll take a rocket scientist to work out. Not happy, longing for a shift, longing for a change. Slowly but surely you get to a situation. This is called classic lobbying now for eventual change at the SPFL board level.
Yeah, I think it's all go back to maybe 2-3 years ago when Rangers were going after the SPFL, in particular Neil Doncaster. I think they've now got allies on board in terms of the clubs that were mentioned there, and slowly but surely they're turning the screw on Murdo McLennan and the SPFL. So watch this space. I think there could be some movement in that in the next season or two.
Yeah, and lastly, Scotland, Nations League group, Croatia, Portugal and Poland. I loved the way that Steve Clarke summed the whole thing up when he said, oh well, it's Ronaldo, it's the number 10, Modric and Lewandowski.
Yeah, listen, I think it's a great group for Scotland. Obviously we were promoted into the top kind of top group, and you're going to get 3 quality sides, and I think it's great for us that we can go and put our wits up against them. A decent record against Croatia, but hopefully Ronaldo's still playing. He seems to be going forever. I think he's got over 200 caps now, which is incredible. Yeah. So hopefully he's still in the Portugal team. That'd be great for Scotland fans.
Yeah, absolutely. It just puts us all to shame when you see the nick of him at that age. Makes you want to go out and run, and then you change your mind. Just before we go, Stuart, of the VAR that we've been talking about, all of the rule changes, and at times I think maybe we're tinkering with the game too much. What would you like to see implemented and changed? Me personally, I'll throw this in, it's the first time I've got a chance to speak to you about it. I would stop the clock, because I think there's too many people cheating in the game. So if you stop the clock, if you want to roll around, if you want to make a substitution, if you want to do all that, stop the clock. You don't even need to worry about a Bobby Williamson said, where's the 4 minutes coming from?
We'd be happy for a 10, 12, 15 minute additional time.
It's there at the moment. The only smoke screen that people are putting up is, oh, you have to get back to your train, your car, the lot. It's a nonsense.
Yeah. People are complaining about the length of time it takes a decision in VAR, maybe adding another minute or two, but if you're up for the full game being played, I don't have a problem with that, because I want to get my value from when I'm watching at home, so if the game's going to last 120 minutes, fine. We need to stop, you're right, we need to stop a lot of the play acting.
Yeah. Give me this, what change would you like to see that you think would be for the betterment of the game?
I think I'll need to support something, because I can't claim it as my own idea, but I have been on about this for a few years. Change the offside. If there's a part of your body that's onside, you're onside. So if it's your big toe that's playing you onside and the rest of your body is, as we would call it just now, offside, if we reverse that, all of those goals that were chalked off would be allowed.
Yeah.
The game's about goals, and it would make it a bit easier, I do think, for the match officials as well.
Yeah. And that point, obviously Arsene Wenger wants clear daylight.
Clear daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that would be easier with VAR. Is there clear daylight? Not is he just fractionally there. Is there clear daylight? Because the attacker, by the laws of the game, and most people would say, the attacker should get the benefit of doubt at all times, because the game's about scoring goals.
Yeah.
Defenders will say it's about stopping them, but people come to the football to mainly see goals getting scored.
I like Arsene Wenger's take on it.
But I think they're trialling it. I think they're trialling it with UEFA, and they're trialling it with kind of youth level. And I think I totally agree with every word that Stuart said there. Football's about entertainment, scoring goals, and the VAR. I think that's taking an element of enjoyment out of football in terms of a last-minute goal. Do you go mental and jump about with your fellow supporters, or do you go, wait a minute, this might not be a goal?
Celebrate twice.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you get a chance to go to football, or
I rarely go now.
Yeah.
I'm one of the old school. Back in my day, I do enjoy watching the games on television though. I do watch a lot of foreign football as well.
Just to briefly, how difficult is it for you to take a step back?
Impossible. I watch the referee first. I like to see good football.
Yeah.
But genuinely a football fan, not a supporter of a team, a football fan. So I love to see a great game. Doesn't matter who's playing in it, they're playing well, but I'm always rooting for the referee, and if he's getting something wrong, I take a wee bit of pain for him.
Yeah, and I know that, you know, footballers, they never lose that sense of body movement when they think about playing fives or anything like that. It stays with you, what you've been trained to do. Today, you've been on this show for an hour. Is there a kind of almost trying to stop your body from looking for a card to book, Tam, before we go off air? Is it just, you know, it's
automatic?
It's
I
automatic.
just left them in the car.
Yeah.
It's safer if I just don't bring them.
You know what, imagine trying to referee with me and Scott Brown and Gary O'Connell and Derek Riordan, Kevin Thompson, that team.
Yeah.
The young boys at Hibs, you were all wild.
Yes.
Toffee.
Absolutely, but it's there's levels of dissent. Thank God there's no blue card in your day. Anyway, thank you to you for watching the programme. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you can. Great to have Stuart Dougal in here with us, and hopefully he'll come back again, because it's always good to get an insight and give you a chance to offer your opinion. Thank you to so many of you who have done that. We'll get Straight Talk back next week. The women's football show's on. The journos are there. And of course, the Premiership returns with Kerry, Ruffy and Tam and their Saturday morning preview as well. From everyone on PLZ Soccer, thanks for listening and watching.